It's been a rocky season so far, but does Desmond Ridder's return to the starting lineup mean brighter days are ahead for the Atlanta Falcons?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Just download the app, create an account, use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase, last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Guys, if you don't know me, I'm Aaron Freeman, your very humble host of this illustrious podcast. You may also know me as Sirius Black. You may also know me as Mr. Drew, Mr. Holier Than Thou, all that more. So many nicknames. And of course, as your humble host, I really appreciate all of you that make this podcast your first listen, especially the everydayers. Each and every day you tune in to this show, whether the Falcons are playing or not playing, bye weeks or not. Everydayers, you're a special group of people, and I really appreciate you. And if you want to be appreciated, right, all you got to do to become an everydayer is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today's episode, I will be joined by Allen Strk, former co-host of the Locked On Falcons podcast, contributor over at the Falcoholic, and we're going to talk about Desmond Ridder's return to the starting lineup, talk about this upcoming matchup against the hated New Orleans Saints, as well as some of the things that the Falcons need to figure out during their bye week, and hopefully some solutions to some of these problems that have led to this sort of up and down roller coaster of a season. So let's jump into that conversation with Allen Strk right now. Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. And of course, we have another illustrious guest. He is none other than Allen Strk. All right, former co-host of the Locked On Falcons podcast, contributor over at the Falcoholic. And he's here with us to talk bye week. What's, his thoughts on the season so far, as well as sort of what this team needs to figure out to quote unquote get right after this bye week. But Allen, my friend, welcome back to Locked On Falcons.
Oh, it's always a blessing to be here. The very illustrious podcast. Got to have the illustrious guests. I know you've been having several illustrious people, just to heighten that up. Yeah, it's great to be here for Hate Week. A lot going on with the Falcons, quarterback moves, hip-hop celebrations. I don't know if you saw that roster of just legendary artists, but, man, it's all happening, even though the team is, let's just say it, let's keep it real, currently in shambles.
Okay, yeah, it's a fair way to put it. Now, part of the issues with the team is revolving the quarterback, and it was made official on Monday that the Falcons are giving Desmond Ridder the reins back to this offense. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that decision?
I think it had to happen. It was more of just happening by default rather than necessarily it being earned. But then again, what is really earned, given how just low the bar is with the quarterback situation? I do think he deserved to be benched just because of the ball security issues. I think you just can't turn the ball over. What was it? 13 times in 8 games, and probably should have been more when you watch the tape against Green Bay and Detroit. That said, you watch the last 2 games, how Heinicke just not processing quickly enough, putting the ball in harm's way. Heinicke really hasn't added much to the offense other than maybe handling pressure better. Besides that, you really can't, and protecting the ball better, even though that Vikings game, he did his best to try to add to those interception numbers. But nevertheless, I think Ridder, just at this point where the team is at, they need some sort of injection of life. And there's been some signs of him, making the right reads, having some consistency in the passing game. I think the chemistry with Drake London, which is, I think, the best thing the Falcons are right on at this point, given all the lack of infrastructure and offense, is something that they need to build on, because Drake London was just not a factor when Taylor Heinicke was in. And that's one of the biggest reasons why you want to get him in. So overall, positive move to get Ridder back in, but he's got a lot it's a lot on his plate, though, because the Saints, Jets, these are 2 very formidable defenses. So if he's going to help rectify the season, he's going to have to earn every bit of it.
That's fair. It's been a rocky start for the Falcons this year. Just curious to pick your brain on their season so far through 10 games.
disheartening might be the best word, just because after that Tampa Bay game, I was really thinking they could win 10 games. I really thought this team could not win a playoff game, but put in a respectable effort against either Dallas or Seattle, whoever it may be at the time. Because you look at the wins against Houston, Tampa Bay, and Carolina is what it is, in Green Bay. I just thought these were high quality wins. For as much as the team try to beat themselves with the fumbles in the red zone, like you look at those wins, defense was tackling, defense was disciplined. Like they just look like a real credible team where they're going to be on point with things. They're going to have their playmakers. They're going to run the ball well. Defense won't beat themselves, but it's just now it's so much self-inflicted wounds every week, from the short yardage issues to the red zone debacle, and then now the defense all of a sudden looking like the defense from the last 5 years, where there's coverage busts every other drive. We know what it is with the pass rush. It's just very disheartening to see a team that seemed like they were building a new identity look like the same team from the past 5 years. And I think that's what hurts. And I know there's been injuries. You can't replace a great Jarrett, but it's fundamentals. And you thought both these units were starting to progress, and it's gone worse and worse these last 3 games.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the troubling thing about the season is, like, you're going to go through ups and downs over the course of an NFL season. I think there's always this like lie that we tell ourselves every offseason, like, oh, it's going to be smooth sailing to 10 wins or whatever. And but the NFL season, as you look around the league, is ups, downs. Teams that are Super Bowl contenders will have a bad game or two. Just look at my beloved Buffalo Bills, although they seem to figure it out this past Sunday. But it's one of those things where it's like you're not getting anything close to, I think, the best version of this team, and we haven't really seen it up to this point this season. Like, we've gotten glimpses of it, a flash here, a quarter here, a drive here, but like you just haven't seen this team put together what you would say was a complete game. I think you're kind of hoping to get more of that coming out of the bye, but we'll talk more about what you can expect coming out of the bye coming up, and sort of talk about some of these issues that this team is dealing with as we continue today's Locked On Falcons here with Allen Strk of the Falcoholic. So buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful, and Game Time is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets to all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, the best price guaranteed. Game Time is taking the guesswork out of buying tickets and giving you that complete peace of mind. You get the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect before you arrive. They got all-in prices, so you're not going to get slapped with hidden fees. You can buy tickets in seconds right up to the start of the event, and Game Time's guarantee means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, they'll credit you 110% difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. And we know that this time of year can be quite a bit, right? Quite a lot for a lot of folks. And it's natural to feel some sadness, some anxiety with dealing with all the stress that comes with this time of year. And therapy can be the bright spot for you to deal with all this stress and change, something to look forward to, something to make you feel grounded, and also give you the tools to manage everything that's going on. Therapy has taught me that, you can only control what you can control. And that's thanks to BetterHelp. And the thing I love about BetterHelp, and the main reason why I was attracted to BetterHelp, was it's a little bit more affordable than traditional offline therapy. And the second reason is it's convenient and it's designed to be suited to your schedule, right? And it's easy to get started on BetterHelp. It's real simple. You just fill out a brief questionnaire. You'll get matched with a licensed therapist quickly. And the beauty of BetterHelp is you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp by visiting betterhelp.com/lockedon today, and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. So as I mentioned, here with Allen Strk of the Falcoholic, formerly of Locked On Falcons, talking about the sort of ups and downs of this team, the roller coaster that, as Dave Choate would put it, has a poor safety record when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons. But I'm just curious, Alan, talking about sort of this team's inability to kind of put their best foot forward. Um, what for you are some of the biggest issues that this team needs to fix in order to rectify that situation? And I sort of push it to you, sort of what were sort of your top 3 issues that you would like to see this team get fixed down the stretch after the bye week so that they can finish this season much stronger than they began the season?
Well, it has to begin with the offense. And I mean, you could go deep into Arthur Smith, the lack of imagination with the passing game. I really do want to start the offensive line because when you look at the units, there's no unit that's been more disappointing offensive line. Because I don't know about you, and you could definitely chime on this. I did think this offensive line had the potential to be a top 5 unit. Not saying they were going to be, but I really thought the pieces that were coming together. And like you look at the offensive line, other than maybe Drew Dolman, I think, and maybe Jake Matthews, I think all 5 of them have pretty much underachieved, or all 4, excuse me, have underachieved. I think this Lindstrom, as much as he's played at the high level, still too many, just in pass protection. There's moments where he just breaks down and he isn't, like this team still struggles against, when teams run games and twists, and it's just him and McGarry after playing so long together, just too many breakdowns for my liking. I thought Bergeron was going to come along smoother, and it just seems like every week he has 3 or 4 just major busts that leads to either a tackle for a loss or a sack. So I just want to see the offensive line just work more in unison when it comes to pass protection, because I don't think they've been bad as a run blocking unit. I think when you watch the film, it's like the tight ends and the full, like it's everything, like it's kind of like the piece around them. Like it's not like people like to be critical of the offensive line when it comes to the run issues, but like Kyle Pitts has been horrendous as a blocker in recent weeks. And look, people say he should be utilized that, but he's in that role. But you watch the Cardinals game, he had about 4 or 5 plays where it's just he is not handling his responsibility. And I don't think Michael Pruitt has played that well. And they got to bring back the great Parker Hesse. Apparently he's back off injury reserve.
Yeah.
He was the secret weapon last year. So I really do look at the offensive line much from a pass protection standpoint that they have to be better. Other flaws, okay, we got to get on Arthur Smith's case just because, like, you look at just when they run empty, it seems like more times than not, either Heineke or Ridder, whoever's back there, has to scramble. Like they just can't create when it comes empty. Like got like a screen flat or hit quick hitch or or just rub route concept that creates some open space. Like it just seems, and you would think Bijan Robinson would be the perfect guy, or even Kyle Pitts in the slot, but it just seems like more times than not plays break down when they run empty. So I like to see more efficiency in empty. And then defensively, I think they have to get better, and especially goes into the Saints game, covering the middle of the field. Like you saw Trey McBride just getting chunk play after chunk play. Recent weeks, particularly against the Vikings, I just felt the middle of the field was just way too open. And you look, and it looks like Derek Carr will play. Time will tell, but Derek Carr loves throwing the short to intermediate middle of the field, and Alvin Kamara likes feasting there. So to me, I just think doing a better job in the middle of the field, and it's not the linebackers necessarily, because sometimes they're blitzing or they're near the line of scrimmage. I just think tackling in general, particularly from Richie Grant and even Jesse Bates to a certain extent, has to improve. So I look at tackling, covering the middle of the field, offensive line play, and just more efficiency from empty. Because it seems like Arthur Smith is really persistent when it comes to running empty. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it just seems like more times than not, this team is they can't find any solutions coming out of empty. Like there's barely any progressive plays downfield. So that's what I would pinpoint.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I mean, I thought there were too many times, especially against Arizona, when they went empty, where it was just like they, going back to the offensive line conversation, like the offensive line just couldn't hold up to, simple stunts that Arizona was throwing at them. And as you said, the right side of the offensive line with Lindstrom and McGarry, like stunts have not been a major issue for them in, throughout their time here. But for some reason, it has become more of an issue this year. And I think that speaks to some of the, regression that we're talking about with the offensive line not quite living up to this. So I think all of those are fair issues that they need to get addressed. Yeah.
Do you want to mention the pass rush? I just feel like, what can the pass rush do at this point?
I just, it's been an issue all year long. We kind of hoped that like it would get better because we weren't getting, because I don't think we were getting like the best version of Grady Jarrett at the beginning of the season. and it was like, oh well, they still got room to grow because Ebiketie can get better and Campbell can get better, and then Grady Jarrett gets hurt, and it's just like, okay, well, that dream is dead. So
Brian Nielsen, go talk to Brian Flores and just start blitzing.
Yeah, this. I mean, the blitz has been really the only thing that's been keeping their pass rush semi decent to me, anyway. So it's just like, and then you gotta go hard on it. But like, part of the reason why they I don't think they've leaned as heavily on the blitz is because they don't trust their coverage as much, because I don't think they trust their safeties and linebackers to hold up in man coverage to the degree that you normally would if you wanted to go heavy on the blitz. And then you couple that with like they're trying to like run blitzes out of zone, the Raheem Morris special of like cover 3, simulated pressures and whatnot. And then even then that's not really working because the secondary, I think, has kind of taken a step back the last couple of weeks and they're blowing some of those coverages. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's just like, guys just got to start playing better. And then I think that opens up more opportunities for them to do some of the things that they want to do.
Agreed. Yeah. And I do wonder if, because we saw a slight reduction in snaps, do we see even less of Richie Grant? Because I just think Richie Grant has become a liability across the board this year. Like, it's hard to find many positives of his play. He might flash here and there. He actually had a really nice pass breaker against Tennessee. But like in space, I think he could be decent. But you put him in man coverage, and it's just a problem. Like, he just cannot last. So I do wonder what adjustments they can make there. Because you look at personnel-wise, like, I don't know if they could really bench anyone else or play someone more. Like, they kind of got what they got at this point. Like, I do think the offer would be, if he could play this week, would be a great return, because he's had, to me, besides Nate Landman, he's probably been the biggest surprise defensively. And Clark Phillips just did not look ready to play against Arizona. So, and if he has to cover in the slot against Rashid Shaheed, that could get ugly. So hopefully the offer is back, and it's going to run the secondary. I think if the secondary could get back to where they were the first 7 games of the year, this defense has some hope to be at least average.
One tweak they could do, that I know someone in the Locked On Falcons Discord reminded me of, because it was like something I talked about like 2 weeks ago, and then I completely forgot about it, is maybe Trey Flowers could be that answer to the cover tight ends and basically do the thing that he did in Cincinnati. You think that could be an option for them, especially in their dime defense, to you'd still be relying on Richie Grant to maybe be that deep safety, which we know has been iffy at best. But does that feel like a better solution to some of these issues, that you can just put Trey Flowers on tight ends in man coverage?
First off, I love that idea, just because I haven't thought of Trey Flowers in about 7 weeks. Jeff Okudah got healthy, and then Trey Flowers didn't see him again. But that was his specialty in a really good Cincinnati defense. Like, the great Lou Anarumo knows his personnel and where to utilize him. So I think that would be a solid move. Why not get that usage out of him? Just because you see teams are targeting them now. And it's not just because Trey McBride, Hawkinson are in the upper echelon of tight ends, maybe not McBride, but look, he has the potential. But I think where to attack the Falcons at this point. And adjustments just have to be made, especially since Nielsen likes to play more man coverage than compared to previous coordinators, whether it be Raheem Morris or Dean Pease. This team is starting to show real cracks, and it's unfortunate because I really thought the first 7 weeks they were really building towards that. I saw like an identity, and I don't think it was an exaggeration either. Like, Falcons were top 5 in third down defense and red zone defense. Like, those are credible numbers, and they want to get everyone's talk about the schedule. Okay, fine, but look, we're trying to build towards something here. So the fact that they set the bar that high, and then now it's just they're just back to where they have been for the last 5 years. It's disappointing, and hopefully they could find at least a role for some of these role players, just because they're not getting enough from whether it's the interior tackles outside Onyemata, and definitely not getting enough from Richie Grant.
Yeah, I think it's fair. So we'll leave that conversation aside and turn our attention to the next matchup, which is, of course, the hated New Orleans Saints. And so, I haven't really spent any time thinking about this matchup over the weekend, because I was just taking a break from the Falcons. I'm like, oh, this is a free weekend. I don't have to think about the Falcons.
As everyone should.
Yeah. Mental health weekend away from the Atlanta Falcons. But I'm curious, Alan, maybe you can sort of tee us up for some things to think about as the week unfolds, as we start getting paying more attention to this Saints matchup. So we'll get into that, guys, to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. Score early this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with a winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And of course, as I say each and every time, guys, the FanDuel doesn't know that the Atlanta Falcons is your team. So you can sign up at FanDuel and say, hey, my team is the Buffalo Bills. My team is the Kansas City Chiefs. My team is the Philadelphia Eagles, whatever you want, right? And there's no better time to get in on the action than joining FanDuel today, whether you want to bet that money line, which is a straight up bet, or you want to bet the spreads, right? And then if you feel so compelled to be truthful and tell FanDuel, oh, my team is the Atlanta Falcons. If you want to bet on the Falcons this weekend against the Saints, they're still 1.5 point favorites at home against the Saints. Play the spread, player props, over unders. FanDuel has you covered for it all: football, basketball, all the sports. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. So wrapping up today's Locked On Falcons here with Allen Strk, I do want to plug the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel here on YouTube. Locked On is an innovator. It's an icon when it comes to dropping this 24/7 YouTube streaming channel where you can get all the biggest stories from the local experts across all the top shows, national shows from across multiple sports and leagues. All you got to do is find Locked On Sports Today on YouTube as your 24/7 streaming channel, and also check out the Locked On Sports Atlanta 24/7 streaming channel, where you might see this handsome face coming at you guys to give you Falcons takes, alongside Brad Rowland of Locked On Hawks, Daniel Clint of Locked On Bulldogs, Jarvis Tanitra, Locked On Sports Atlanta, Jake from Locked On Braves, all that more on Locked On Sports Atlanta's 24/7 YouTube streaming channel. So, Alan, talking about this upcoming matchup against the Saints, it's hate week. You know, everything feels a little bit more urgent against the New Orleans Saints. Win, lose.
First place on the line.
Yeah. You know, your season, is it fair to say, like, they lose this game, you know, it's just like, well, the season's over. They're not going to figure it out. Or, you know, is this game of that importance, or are we not there yet?
If the Jets didn't announce they were starting Tim Boyle against the Dolphins, I would have said maybe the season's over, but you know, is Tim Boyle coming up? And then
Tim Boyle almost beat the Falcons a couple of years ago, so I don't know.
What was this?
When he played for the Lions in 21.
Wow, that was him?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Goal line interception.
Wow, that was
saved us from losing a game to Tim Boyle.
You know, usually I'm the one with the great memory, so Aaron's picking up the slack here. Much respect. But given that, I don't know how many, I feel like they don't have many home games left, and it's just division's really all they got, because they're 2-0 right in the division. You know, besides that, they don't have many other wins. So in a way, it is like that, because it's hard to see, given how much this team has struggled on the road and how at times Ridder has looked intimidated and overwhelmed. It's hard to see his team winning in New Orleans, because that's still a very hostile environment. So yeah, I would still say this is a must win, even though I am playing up the Tim Boyle angle. But man, it's just, I'm curious to see. You know, we saw Bijan Robinson get that expanded role. Are they going to continue putting him in that role? How many targets does Drake London get? We also have we have to see how the Saints are looking, because coming out of that Minnesota game, they had some pretty severe injuries, most notably with Lattimore. So there's just a lot of questions there. There's a lot of uncertainty. But it's just, you hope because the Falcons have notoriously started slow all season. You really hope they come out the gate strong, because if not, you just see the Saints, you know, dialing up the pressure. And I think the last thing you want to see is against what I think is a very good Saints secondary. You don't want to see Ridder throwing the ball 35, 40 times.
That's fair. That's fair. And to answer my own question, I feel like the season's always been destined. It's going to come down to who wins that Week 18 game against the Saints. It's going to decide who wins this division. So I don't think this week the season is on the line, but the Falcons definitely put themselves in a much more favorable situation for that potential Week 18 matchup, where it's a win and you're in with a win this week, that they basically still control their destiny down the stretch, as opposed to not necessarily having that situation should they lose on Sunday. But you talk about the Saints matchup. Sort of, what do you feel like is going to be like the biggest challenge for this team against this Saints team?
Has to be through the air because Debo's playing on a high level. I still think, even though he's aging, Honey Badger Matthew, he's always going to be around the ball, and he's always going to be patrolling the middle of the field. DeMar Davis, Pete Werner, still one of the best linebacker tandems. Like, it's just, I find it very hard in structure seeing teams throw on the Saints team. I know Josh Dobbs has success, but I feel like a lot of that came down to schematically with Kevin O'Connell doing a fantastic job, and just Josh Dobbs just operating out of structure and just making those plays where outside the pocket he just off balance, and it was pretty miraculous. Other than that, to me, the Saints secondary has played terrific this year, and I think it's really what's fueling them right now, because the offense has been very unsteady, and I don't think they have quite the horses up front, which you kind of expect given how much they lost in free agency. So how a very disjointed, fragmented Falcons pass game, how they managed to just somehow muster up a rhythm against the Saints secondary, I'm very fascinated by. To me, this game is really going to test Arthur Smith, because we know the rumblings has been like with Arthur Smith, and of course they're going to run the ball, but how they manage to orchestrate through the air is going to be something to really monitor, because outside of Drake London, we have not seen much consistency elsewhere, and Jonnu Smith for like a 3-week stretch.
Okay, all right. We'll see what's what this week. Alan, appreciate you coming on, sharing your thoughts on the team leading up to the bye, the team coming out of the bye, and as well as giving the people some insight into this upcoming Saints matchup. Because as I said, like, I have not spent any amount of brain cells thinking about it until this conversation.
And I do want to mention, every year the Saints defense has like someone that emerges. Carl Granderson's a problem. He is somebody that has really emerged this season. He's always shown flashes, but now in expanded role, like down to down, he's making a difference. And I would even, this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think he's outplayed Cameron Jordan.
Of course he has, because Cameron Jordan's washed. So I've been saying that for 2 years. So I will let Ross Jackson know Cam Jordan is still washed.
Is McGarry Island alert on?
Oh, man. I wish I could push my Caleb McGarry agenda this year, but it's been rough. It's been rough. So I'm off the island. Island.
What's more rough, the Caleb McGarry Island getting bombarded, or the fact that Chase Young is good?
Is Chase Young good though?
He's good.
Is it Bosa though? It's always been Bosa.
Okay, that's how I know you have not even watched Commanders, which is understandable, because he was actually doing. He was tearing up. He was productive until he played the Falcons as a pass rusher, and then Jake shut him down. Jake Matthews, I know I've been critical of the offensive line, but Jake Matthews, he's had games where he's been very reliable. But then, similar to Bergeron, similar to Matthews, and similar to McGarry and Lindstrom, I feel like him and Bergeron have had great chemistry when it comes to handling games as well. So I don't know. Dwayne Ledford got a lot of praise last year, but this year, I don't know. And then TJ Yates at wide receiver, your boy.
Oh man. Okay. All right.
What are we gonna do with these positional coaches, Aaron?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, anyway, Alan, let the people know what you're working on, what you're up to, how they can get at you if they, disagree or agree with some of your takes on the Falcons.
Allen Strk, ALLENSTRK. Falcon busy as usual. We got roundtables. We got film breakdowns. We have panic mode articles. We have lots of Desmond Ridder takes. A lot of people wondering what's going to happen with Kyle Pitts. We have not talked about Kyle Pitts once on the podcast, so I think that shows we're setting our own bar. We're getting away from the trends. The fact that we have a 4-minute discussion about Kyle Pitts, but Falcon, you get the great coverage as usual, and not 100% confirmed yet, but very likely I will be covering Falcons Jets. So if you want to see me back on my beat reporter beat, I'll be at MetLife most likely.
Okay. Well, let me know. Okay. I was going to make a bad Zach Wilson joke, but I'll just let it go. Kyle Pitts take. I feel like Pitts has looked better the last couple of weeks, more explosive. It looks a little healthier. Would you agree, disagree?
I feel like he's looked healthy since that Texans game.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just usage, and I don't know why he's being utilized as an inline tight end so much now compared to his first 2 seasons.
Okay. we'll leave it there. It's the end of the episode, so yeah, well, that'll be something I'll explore later on the podcast. Look for conversation with Charles McDonald on tomorrow's episode, here on Locked On Falcons. So continue to make us your first listen. That's going to do it for us, guys. Appreciate it. Till then.